We're not including the rainforest. Hi, Courtney. Good to see you
Hi,
again.
good to see you again.
No,
Yes.
we're not talking about the rainforest. I mean, it, whatever. This is what you get for being late.
This is what I get when Kira can't do this podcast, and you have
To
to.
be
You're
fair,
forced
the
to have
most
me.
things I kill are plants more than anything else. So I guess
More
somewhere
than characters in your stories.
more so than my characters. My plants really get it.
Well, that the plant behind you is shivering, wondering when
Good
it's
thing
going to
it's
be their
fake.
time. Oh.
I'm Jeannie Flatt-Bowerman,
And I'm Kira Duggan.
and you are listening to The Story Will Save You. So today we're talking with Courtney Psak, who graduated with a degree in communications and journalism with a master's degree in publishing. I should also state that she is a mystery thriller author. She currently lives in Palm Beach, Florida, with her husband and two sons. She's a member of the Crime Writers Association, International Thriller Writers, Sisters in Crime, and Mystery Writers of America. And today, Matt Misitich is with me, which is always
Sure.
fun.
50-50.
Well, it
40,
could
60.
mean that chaos will ensue.
Not on a Wednesday, ma'am. It'll be an interesting interview because I've met Courtney before at Thriller Fest and at BoucherCon. You've got a great comic book last name. It's like a sound effect.
Right? It does. It does sound like a pow sack.
Yes. I told you this before. In fact, I think I told you this every year for the last 2 years. And I'm going to tell you again at Thriller Fest if you will be there in a few weeks.
Yes, I will.
Oh, good. To promote your new book, I would assume.
Yep.
I'm curious. I'm curious. I'm going to lead off the question this time.
Go right ahead.
No, this is
It's all
technically
yours.
your podcast.
Not
The
my
books that you've
podcast.
written, well, whatever. The books that you've written thus far, all thrillers.
Yes.
What's kind of the running, like what's the commonality between all of them, or is there a commonality? Because I know a lot of thriller authors tend to revisit certain locations or certain themes or it's the same character. But even the books that aren't in the same world, what's kind of the binding factor there?
Yeah, so like I said, they are all standalones, but yeah, the commonality is kind of just taking people into these worlds of, glamour and awe that people are, always wanting to peek behind the hedges of, and kind of showing like there's cracks in the facade and not everyone's, as glamour, not everything that glitters is gold. So
Okay.
the overall theme kind of comes down to, no matter where you are in your life, whether that's through class or wealth, you can't escape just basic human emotions. And when you tear everything else apart and break it all down, it's really just we're all humans with the same, we all have trauma. We all suffer from grief and loss and betrayal and jealousy and envy and all of those things.
Can I just say, Matt, that was my first question?
Sorry, I'm winging it too. Can I just say, not to my credit, or
I know.
anything, but I like to wing it. All
We
right,
are
well,
wingers.
you'll have to hit your second question.
Well, that was the only question I had.
Oh, good.
Just kidding.
Thanks,
I'm only
Courtney.
kidding.
It's been great. The
It
Tutor.
was really
Out
great.
now.
This is awesome. The story will save you.
No,
No.
yeah, except in this podcast.
No,
I'm kidding.
but-
Was that the same since your first book, which was God,
Yeah,
I
the
hate the
first book-
title. The first
The
book
first book was The
30.
Tutor.
No,
Oh, you're
sorry,
talking about
your first book.
my self-published book, 30 Days to
Ah.
30. That was 2015. That was a long time ago.
Oh my. Self-published.
Self-published women's fiction. And it was just to kind of, I had submitted that around to various agents and believe it or not, had like one or two agents get back to me. But they kind of made it clear, like, unless you were doing like 50 Shades or Twilight, like they weren't, the whole women's fiction romantic comedy thing was sort of, going out of, phasing out at that point. But they suggested that I self-publish. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about this. And the book's called 30 Days to 30. And it was about, kind of just like a resolution list about someone that like everything they thought was important by the time they were 30, they lost it all a month beforehand and, found this list they made when they were younger in high school and learned like, the things on there were really basic, just like take up yoga, learn golf, teach
Right.
myself how to cook. And so she takes the month doing that. So it's a resolutions book. And so when I was about to turn 30, my husband looked at me and goes, well, why don't you do your 30 list? You've always wanted to publish a book, like just do it. And so it wound up being really successful because I had gotten selected into BookBub, which meant I could choose the promotion week, and I did between Christmas and New Year's.
Oh,
So that helped. But it also just taught me really about the industry and how you learn. Like it's not just write a book and then there you go. Like you have a lot of work you have to do to market it and advertise it. And, even then with self-publishing, I mean, you're doing the cover, the editing, the formatting. So it was a real eye opener. And then, I wasn't like kind of, agreeing with the agents a little bit. I was kind of falling out of reading romantic comedies and I was more into writing mysteries and thrillers. I just didn't at the time have the confidence to, you see these brilliant minds and the puzzles that they put together. And I didn't think I'd be capable of doing that. So we were starting to think about having kids at that point. And I went, well, I definitely have to wait till they're in school because I couldn't try to like handle two kids at home and then also a writing career. So my youngest now is in kindergarten. And during that time, I just read every thriller book possible and deconstructed it, took like writers courses. Writer's Digest does a really good like online thriller conference. And you can just, brilliant advice. And so that's kind of what got me into this now.
And now you're traditionally published. And
Yes.
so do you think you learned a lot from being self-published to help you in the traditional space in terms of like self-marketing and things like that?
Yeah, no, it was really helpful to see that. And then, my prior life too, I was a project manager at Nickelodeon and I was always handling, everyone from a marketer, a CEO, a designer, a freelance artist. And so I also kind of get the sense like when they're putting together their cover for me to look at and everything, I'm understanding too where they are on the business side and why they're choosing what they're choosing. And so it's helpful with our relationship as well, because I'm not just like, no, I don't like this. It's like, I get why that.
I do remember reading somewhere that, and maybe I'm wrong, that you got a 3-book deal.
Yeah, so it was a 3-book deal with Potter and
Did
Stone.
that scare the bejesus out of you, or were you?
I already had them written, so it was actually really exciting. So it was really just going to be more of an editing thing.
Lucky you.
Although what's funny is, so the book that got me my agent is actually The Aunt, which is coming out in June. And that was really my first book. And so when I was starting to get the line edits for it, it happened to be the week that the Tutor was launching. And so I was traveling from Miami to Tampa and, doing my launch party and all these other things. So I didn't get a chance to look at it. And when I reread it, it was still good, but I was like, wow, my writing has evolved so much just in the next, in the other 2 books that I wrote. So I had to go back and I said to my editor, I'm like, I really want to align this more with, kind of the readership I'm building. This one's a little different. So I wanted to fix it up. So it had a little more work to it, but
what did you change?
So it's a story that involves 2 sisters who are estranged from one another. And I was doing the first half of the book was one sister's perspective, and then the second half was the other sister's perspective. It still worked, but the pacing was a little slow. And you always worry when somebody reads a book, they're like, oh, never mind, I don't like this character. And then they, so I decided to kind of do a dual timeline. So then I was just switching, each chapter was a different sister. One was current, the other was in the past. And, it's just the challenge of making sure that you're aligning the story together, that it's linear as you're going back and forth from each chapter.
And stylistically, though, like your writing style, did anything change in like your voice and that sort of thing, or was it mostly like
not really in the voice, just kind of in the layout? I just felt the pacing was a little slower, and so I wanted to make it more like my other 2 books.
Going back to the self-publishing thing, by the way, Jeannie, I feel like the new rule should be every author has to self-publish one book and see what the perspective is from every different angle before they go and
I agree.
reach out to traditional publishers.
It's really true.
Yeah. If only every screenwriter could go make a film and, figure that stuff out. Because it makes you appreciate all these other different roles and you start looking at it through a different lens, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Your precious
like
masterpieces. Yeah. Your precious masterpieces might be a precious masterpiece, but someone has to like see the value in it, whether it's a sort of a awardsy kind of book or it's something that's going to be commercial and make a ton of money, or both, right? So
exactly.
You don't have to give us sales, but how did the first one do? Did okay?
The first one I got like 6,750 in the first 3 months.
Oh, well,
That
Wow.
that's pretty
That was
decent.
actually
great.
more than my traditional published book. So I was kind of like, what's going on, guys? Why aren't you doing your job? I got this in 3 months. And then naturally,
That's
I
the beauty of it.
understand.
You can criticize future traditional publishers for, not doing what you already accomplished. Do you think that was because it was 11 years ago and the landscape has changed and self-publishing has gotten more difficult, or was it some other factor?
No, I mean, I think back then self-publishing was a lot more difficult because format, and there's so many programs now that you can just put your book
Mm,
into, and Canva, you can kind of like put things together
sure.
and
Yeah.
design your own cover. I honestly, that had to do, I think, with BookBub, getting selected into that program and then planning a resolutions book out during New Year's. I think just had, hit a lot of people as like, this is a quick, easy read and a
Catchy title. Yeah.
yeah.
How do you think you got into that program?
I don't know. I just knew it was something that was important to apply to. So,
Yeah.
I sent them my cover and my description, and it didn't really explain how. It was just like, you've been selected. I was like, oh, great. I kind of
Awesome.
almost didn't realize how hard it was until, my traditional published editor was like, okay, we're going to try for BookBub. We'll see, and I was like, oh, you can't just do that.
Right.
And I'm also fascinated with mystery and thriller writers too, like how they figure out those puzzles and all of that. And for me as a reader, when I read them, one of the things that I've never tried to write them is because when I read them, a lot of times I can figure out who did it. Like, and I was the same way when I would watch soap operas in college. Like I would say to my friends, oh, okay, 6 months from now, watch this and this and this is going to happen. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you just write it down and you see that that's exactly what would happen. So like with mystery thriller writing, I think it's such an incredible gift and a little intimidating because I wouldn't dive into it because I would feel like I don't think I could do it to make it so that it really is like shocking endings or something that's really a surprise. And how do you lay all that out and plant all this stuff? Like, do you have a huge whiteboard that you kind of figure this puzzle out on? Like, how do you begin with the outlining of something like that?
Yeah, so each book is kind of different. I'm definitely more of a plotter than a pantser, but at the same time, when I wrote The Tutor, that one I did a complete overhaul too. Everything I did in that was like really predictable, and I remember sending it to my editor, I'm sorry, my agent, right after she had gotten right as I signed on with her. I was like, oh, and I wrote something else, and like kind of was just so excited to give her something else that I didn't really look at it, and then I looked at it and I was like, this is like really predictable. And I just was kind of embarrassed. I was like, why don't we take this one off the table? And she had read it and she's like, yeah, I think that's best. But then she came across an editor that really liked the idea. And I was like, well, they like the idea, but the book's terrible. So I was like, let me just give me a month to try to like redo this. And so that's why when you kind of read that book, it will like lead up to something. You're like, I see where that's going. I would get to that point and go, okay, how do I really like turn it on its head? It's like, all right, let's go in this direction. And then anytime you got to a point, you're like, okay, yeah, well, now that's predictable. And we're only 50% in. Like, all right, what can we do to like really twist their heads again? And then we would do that. And so I kept getting to those points where I was like, if I thought you could get it, I tried to put it somewhere else. So that one, I guess, was a little bit of pantsing because I had to go back and just go, okay, what am I doing here? And then with the Hostess, the idea for that book actually was my ending. So I almost kind of went backwards in that sense because I knew how I wanted it to end. And I went, how can we misdirect in all these different ways?
I was going to just note that sometimes you have to actually be writing the book to know where the holes in the outline are, strangely, or paradoxically enough, right? You can only, get the outline, finesse it so right. Once you're really into the story, little things change, right? And it kind of courses elsewhere, and sometimes it does. I haven't written a thriller before, but I would imagine sometimes you realize like, oh, this is too predictable, or this is too cliche, or this logically doesn't make sense, or something, right?
Yeah.
So that's it. Just noting, Jeannie.
Yeah, but no, when you're writing a thriller, you have your outline, but what I kind of do is the way as people have told me that I write like a screenwriter because the first draft is just very bare bones. I'm just, There's hardly any emotion to it. There's no description, just making sure that everything makes sense. And I always have to stop in the first 10,000 words, which is probably like the first 5 chapters, because then that's like, even when you think you know your characters, they start to come alive when you write them down. So I'll stop
Sure.
at like the 10,000 mark and go, okay, are they still on the path that I planned, or are they, is their attitude actually going to, or personality going to direct me to make this happen, this change or this change or that
Hmm.
change? But yeah, I'll have to kind of navigate that. But yeah,
So your first draft is dialogue heavy then, typically.
yeah, dialogue and scene. And then the
Yeah.
first go through is just making sure. I'll then try to read it all in over the span of 2 days. I'll read that whole first draft, and just because everything's fresh in your mind at that point, and go, okay, let me change this. This doesn't make sense. Here's a plot hole here.
Totally.
This
Yeah.
turn is not what I want it to be. And I get all of that set up. But usually when my agent sees it, a lot of my notes I get from her is like, you forgot to talk about what they're wearing here, or, build up this, describe the setting more, because that's always kind of the last thing I do. Because there's no
Mhm.
point in
Right.
creating like this, eerie scene or gorgeous scene, and then you have to cut it anyway. So it's like, worry about it later.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way like a screenwriter would approach a novel. Like they would write like, a lot of white on the page in the screenwriting world, but just the basic bare bones and then fill in. Because as screenwriters, you don't talk about what they're wearing unless it's really critical to the scene.
Exactly.
Like it's that kind of stuff. The wardrobe person takes care of that, Yeah. So that's interesting. And then you get to beef it up
Yeah.
in your rewriting process. So you've got this whole first draft and you're rewriting. Do you focus on structure first and then work your way down to line edits? Like, what is your basic process when you're going to rewrite your draft?
In terms of rewrite, so like I'll say I do that bare bones one, then I'll go and check for plot holes, then I'll, focus on description, and also, I'll realize that I've said 170 times, or like absolutely, there's certain words you wind up realizing you're using over and over again, or, similar gestures and phrases. So I'll go check all that. And then, yeah, from there, I'm fortunate that my agent is a former editor. So she kind of does an editorial assessment for me. And then she'll tell me, we need to give more of a backstory to this character, or we need to, maybe this person's not necessary for the plot, or, so she'll do something like that for me. And then from there, we'll submit. And that point, then you get into the line edits, the copy edits, the finer tuning.
I really like how you talked about not diving deep into the settings and stuff like that in the beginning. It's like makes it less precious to just cut a scene.
And that's the thing. And there's so many, and actually, so with the aunt, the same thing. When you're submitting a book to agents, you have to have a certain amount of a certain word count, for them to even look at it. And once you have an editor, it doesn't matter as much. And there was a lot of just scenes in there that I kind of did more for the sake of a word count and really didn't drive the story forward. So I also took a lot of stuff out and was just like, yeah, we don't need this.
I get new authors asking me, like screenwriters who like want to get into writing books. And obviously they've read books and stuff, but like reading books, you're reading it for the story. You're not thinking about like, oh, how did this person write about the setting or the weather or what someone's wearing or what someone looks like. And they asked me, how much of that is actually important. And I'm like, I don't know. It depends on the book. Some stories you'll read, great novels, right? Don't really get in that much to like what the setting is in a particular scene or what everyone is wearing or even what everyone looks like. It has to pertain to the story. So when you're writing a genre book like a thriller or a mystery crime something, where it is so much more plot driven, what's that balancing act that you do when you start a new chapter? Like how much are you actually giving the reader? Is it a personal preference or is there some kind of a genre standard and expectation?
I don't know if there's necessarily a genre expectation. It's kind of what your goal is as a writer. I mean, there's certainly I'm sure there are thrillers out there that are very I mean, Stephen King does a lot of description because he's really
Yeah.
setting, he wants the reader to feel scared that this character just walked into this room and what could happen, or sees a red balloon by the sewer, so there's a
Right.
lot that they really need to set the scene for. So when you're in a situation like that, you do need a lot of description, and then there's some authors that are more literary. So, they want to lean towards that. So they focus on like the real beauty of the setting. But when you're dealing with, more of like the commercial fiction,
Hmm.
you kind of realize you don't want to lose your reader in the weeds.
Right.
You want them to remember why they're there. And, right now we're dealing with a time where everyone has their phone with them, the TV. So like there's all these other distractions. So you really want to keep your writing tight because you want them to go to the next page. If you go too heavy on a description, they're like, oh, I don't care. Do they die or what? Like you kind of need
And
to
they'll stop
teach them
reading. Like
along.
the
Exactly.
attention,
They'll
it's
stop
not really
reading.
an,
They'll go to their phone.
yeah, human beings have always had, they say that there's so many more distractions now that, or we all have, ADD or ADHD.
Mhm.
We've always had that. You always had to keep someone interested, or else they would leave the campfire in the caveman days, right?
Yeah.
I would assume. Which is kind of a funny scene. Someone just like throwing the stone tablet down. I was like, this story stinks. But uh, but to do it now, you're right. There are so many more distractions, and I think people are more willing to like stop reading because they can, right?
Mhm.
Like they've paid $1 on Kindle to read it, and they're like, "Well, I didn't invest $25 in a hardcover, so I'm just going to give up." Do you think this is more of a industry culture philosophical question, perhaps? But uh, do you think that's changed how writers and how editors approach more commercial fiction? Or do you think like 20 years ago it's the same as it is now in terms of like pacing and that sort
No,
of
I
thing?
think it's changed. Carly Waters has she's a literary agent
Hmm.
for, I think it's
Yeah.
PF Literary.
Yeah.
I remember she does like these industry updates, and she was saying, the word count when you were trying to get an agent initially had to be like at least 90,000 words, and not
Mm.
like between 90,000 and 100, it couldn't be over 120. And now it's like 70,000 words just to keep
Yeah.
Mhm.
it fast paced. And, I think that's also, 25 years ago, like if you guys were at Thriller Fest, I don't know if you were at the award ceremony, but John Grisham was talking about how, 25, 30 years ago, there were no Thriller Fest. It was just
Hmm.
literary awards. So, award shows, because everybody thought like you want to sound like a poet. And they're starting to realize like, no, you want people to read. And most people have a fifth grade reading level. So they
Hmm.
don't need $10 words because they're going to go, I don't want a dictionary when I'm reading. They want to enjoy a story. So I think they're finally recognizing that, yeah, you gotta appeal to the masses.
Yeah.
And it's similar with screenwriting. I remember when I started, it was like
Sure.
120 words was, I mean, 120 pages was
Pages.
the
Yeah.
norm. Now it's like 90 pages. Like
It
Mhm.
depends on the
sweet spot.
genre. Like if you
Yeah.
have a drama, true story, you can go up to 115, 120 in screenwriting. But
Yeah.
in the TV world, though, Netflix has adamantly denied this, but it's like the dialogue now is like, this is what is happening currently, and this is what is going to happen. And there's no real nuance and subtlety. They say it's just like, no, we give our creators full control. I'm like, I don't know. I think they're nudging them to like, let's make this perfectly explicit, at least for certain types of shows and certain types of streamers, right?
And I
So,
and I've heard that part of why they do that is because they know people are on their phones while they're
And missing
watching
important
something.
information.
And so they're not looking at the screen to
yeah,
notice those little subtleties. They've got to like spell it all out for them, which to me is so sad for humanity that we
second
can't
screen
just
show.
watch
Yeah.
something.
But here's my argument on that. Thanks, Courtney. We're all done talking about that. We're gonna talk about this now. No.
I
I'm
have
curious
more
about
questions.
No,
your.
I think it's really interesting, and I agree with you. And I heard that as well. It's that
Yeah.
Mhm.
it just, you take the whole twist. It's funny because thrillers, everybody wants a plot twist, and you're like, you always don't. You kind of don't need a plot twist all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
Claire Danes in The Beast in Me, like there was no plot twist there. He either did it or he didn't. But everyone was still invested in the suspense of it and going like, what's
Mhm.
she doing? Why is she meeting him on the top of a skyscraper that's not finished that he can just like push her over? Like,
Yeah. It's
know,
that's a great example too, because it really I didn't finish it, but so don't tell me if you did or didn't. But like, 4 episodes in, it's more about the character and their dynamic, and that's what the hook is. The hook doesn't always have to be like the question mark, right?
exactly.
It
It's
has
the
to
mind games they play with each other. That's, really cool. That
right,
drew
yeah.
me.
And if you're
Um,
not interested in the character, you're not going to keep reading and you're not going to keep watching.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched All Her Fault or if you read the book. It was the Sarah Snook show on Hulu.
I read the book. I didn't, I got to watch the show.
The show is, I think, it's so it gets so over the top. I mean, you know what the twist and stuff is,
Yeah,
already,
I
but
do
like,
know that one.
um, it's so ridiculous. That's not how it works because they just earns every single beat of the story, right?
Mhm.
So that's the opposite that's the opposite example of like where we really didn't know like who did what and why and all these pieces that had to kind of come together. Um, those feel like the most complicated sort of thrillers and crime
Yeah.
stories
You
to
try
write.
not to come out of left field too much. And
Right.
that was a little bit of a head spin.
Yes. You should watch the show. Definitely watch the show. But yeah, to Jeannie's point, to both your points, though, like it is sad that we have to kind of dumb things down. But I would argue that there's always been, they call them second screen shows now, right? Because they know that people are going to be like half on their phones while they're watching it. And it's like, well, people used to be watching soap operas and making dinner, and like the soap operas had to be kind of dumbed down, right? And now the soap opera world is dying because no one's, that generation is sort of going away. So now you have verticals. Courtney, if you're familiar with verticals, the shows that they make specifically for your phone, which are very drippy and melodramatic and telenovela like. And it's like, uh, there's always going to be an audience for, I don't want to call them dumb shows. It's just like easy entertainment. Like, not everything has to be this literary masterpiece, right? Or
Yeah.
Succession,
Some
or
people,
this,
yeah.
yeah, this heavy thing.
No, there's always those go-to shows like Law and Order and everything that you can just like tune
Right.
into and you don't have to follow and like you just find out at the end if they're brought to justice.
Yeah, and 10 million people still watch like these shows, so it's not like there's no market there. I don't know why I'm defending non non-artistic media, but this has been quite the week for me, as Jeannie will tell you, with our staff
Well, I don't know how
discussing.
Well,
artistic my books are. They're probably, they're very straightforward.
Yeah, but that's the point. Like they just have to be fun and entertaining, and then you'll get another book deal, and then you can write another one, and then if you want to go write a literary something or other under a pen name, then you go do
I
it.
don't know
Right?
those $10 words. I'm that person that has to have a dictionary when I
She's
try
not
to do that.
prodigious enough. Might be a word.
So-
Look it up later.
You talked before about when you decided to write mystery thrillers that you really started like reading a lot of them and deconstructing them. We are actually having a symposium tonight about deconstructing novels.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we are indeed.
So, which I think is really important. And it's one of those things that a lot of writers don't take the time to do. Like films in film school, which I did not go to, but I have a lot of friends who did. You do a lot of deconstructing of films. Like you analyze them and pull them apart and deconstruct them. And people, I think, kind of do that a little bit organically when they're watching films, and talk about them after or whatever. It's a lot easier to watch a movie than it is to read a book, and certainly a lot more difficult to deconstruct a book while you're reading it. Like, and you have fun while you're deconstructing. Like I started this little thing, keeping a notebook of things that I like in this book that I was reading. And I was like, oh my God, it's going to take me 6 months to read this book. I'm reading it this way. Like, so some of the things maybe like, I don't know if you continue to deconstruct as trends change and as things, like you said, books are getting shorter or whatever. Like, have you been deconstructing some of the top things that are out now? Or was that something you felt was just more valuable to you in the beginning when you were learning how to write mystery thrillers?
It's something I've always done that I didn't always realize. I was reading, I don't want to give the book away, but I was reading a thriller book. This was like 10 years ago. And I remember, just reading so much, you don't even realize how in tune you are to like what you like and don't like and where the plot twists are. And I remember at the end, everyone was like, I can't believe he killed her. This is crazy. And I'm like, what do you mean? I knew that in the first 5 pages. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the entire thing was written in past tense. So of course he had killed her because everything was you were this, you were that, and blah, blah, blah. And people were like had no idea. And I was like, I didn't think I was that smart at it, but you just so you write as a writer, but you edit as a reader and continue to read after you write the first draft, you continue to read it as a reader. And what would make you mad if you were a reader that picked this up?
Yeah.
That's a good way to think about it.
You mentioned golf earlier with one of your characters. Do you play golf? You live in Florida, right? Sunshine all year round?
Oh yeah, I'm an amazing golf player. I'll tell you my famous story. When I grew up playing field hockey, and my dad.
Me too.
Oh, nice.
Hey.
And so I'm a naturally lefty, but there are no lefty sticks. So I had to grow up being a righty. And I think it was like my senior year of high school. My dad, for spring break, took us to Scottsdale, Arizona, and was like, "This is, golf, something you need to learn in business, and this is where all the deals are made," sort of.
Right.
And I was playing field hockey at the time. So I go and hit the driver and the head goes flying off. And they looked at me, they're like, "How did you do that?" I'm like, "I don't know." I'm like sitting there holding the stick. And they're like, "All right, here, we'll get you another one. Maybe that was broken. We didn't realize it." I did the exact same thing. I broke it again. They're like, "There's no way you could do that a third time." And I did it a third time. And then they wouldn't let me have, I was only allowed irons after that.
I have been playing golf since 1986, to give you I have never broken the head off a driver once.
Turns out the thickest part of a field hockey stick is the most sensitive part of a golf stick.
Oh, so you have the angle was not good, basically.
Exactly.
I see.
I think I had like a Happy Gilmore sort of swing.
Right. Well, that's not good. Well, I guess in field hockey, I wouldn't be a very good field hockey player because I would probably miss the whatever the thing they call. Is it a ball?
It's been years since I've played field hockey. I have played golf a little bit, but I'm more like a best ball kind of. So when mine goes in the woods, I drop whoever's in the fairway. I drop next to them.
That's fair. Yeah. I just wanted to use this as a segue to talk about the round I had the other day, but that's okay. We can talk about it offline. I'll bother Jeannie with it later. You're also going to Thriller Fest this year, coming up next week, 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Oh
yeah.
God.
Did they put you on a panel?
I'm not on a panel, but I am part of the. I know. I wanted to be, but I'm going to be part of the debut author breakfast.
Oh, good. We're sponsoring that as Pipeline, actually.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Yes, of course. And we're giving away. I think we're sponsoring it. I guess we are because I think we are. Sponsorship deal was because we're giving away 50 copies of our. This is about Courtney, but I'm going to plug the Fringe.
I was just going to say,
go for it.
Whatever. Hey, it's related. No, we're giving away copies of the Fringe Press debut novel, Hail Holy Queens, the horror novel.
Nice.
Have you considered writing other genres? Speaking of horror.
No, I like the mystery thriller aspect. And it's funny, there's so many genres within this genre that I'm hearing, like I'll be like, "Oh, I have this really good locked room mystery idea." And they're like, "But that's not really your brand." I'm like, "I have a brand already." Like, I guess I'm more domestic thrillers than I am locked room mysteries. But I'm like, I feel like you got to give a little more room here.
It's all
all these subgenres. I feel like sometimes it's just like too much. It's almost like they decided, okay, how can I get a different keyword to put in my Amazon description so that I could maybe have this little niche market. It's a mystery. Everyone calm down.
Yeah.
Exactly. And no one wants to read the same story over and over and over. And if you like an author's writing, I would think you'd want to have a little more breadth of work within that genre.
I'm going to write an unlocked room mystery where we know what happens in the very beginning and the rest of it is just like they're kind of hanging out, it's a very cozy, relaxing sort of story, and then it ends.
That so tracks for you, like
very much. Like, what am I reading right now? Why are they all just having scones and coffee? I also made a mistake, by the way. Your newer book is The Ant coming out soon.
Yeah, that's
correct?
the next one coming out. Yeah.
Or The Aunt, however it is you want to pronounce.
Ooh, is it Aunt or Aunt?
The UK says the aunt, and I've been trying to say the aunt, but my Jersey comes out and I say aunt. Like,
I'm
say
an aunt
Everyone say
person.
Oh, you're an aunt
Aunt
person.
is like a
it
bug.
sounds a little more sophisticated.
Yes, aunt.
No, it's ants. That's some upstate New York weirdness. I don't know.
It's so cultured and educated.
Well, you don't say. I guess you don't say the uncle.
Do you
I don't know.
say restaurant or do you say restaurant?
Restaurant? No, restaurant.
Restaurant.
Exactly.
Yeah, but those are two different words.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Leave everything that we're talking about in this episode, please. I
Absolutely.
really want to spark a debate on social.
Leave in the comments when you see this posted how you pronounce it.
Yes.
Like a bug or a fabulous woman.
Our number one fan, is it Jennifer Humans? Is that am I pronouncing
Jennifer,
that correct?
she's fantastic. She loves them.
She's kind of she's your leader of your fan club, Jeannie.
She's great. Shout out right now. She's awesome. Hey,
and
Jennifer.
you know what she should do? She should go pick up one of Courtney's thrillers, which are I haven't read it, but I do have the Tutor sitting somewhere in my house. Amongst my first few Thriller Fests, I'm like, I have to buy everybody's book that I meet, and I bought like 80 books.
I know, I did too.
Suitcase.
And I always bring I always stupidly bring a carry-on, and then I go, why did I do this to myself?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I have to limit myself to one big piece of luggage, or else I would.
I think I think I subconsciously try to have self-control by going, I can't buy this book. I have only a carry-on. But then I do it anyway, and I'm sitting there with like my purse and like 8 books in my hand on one side and 8 in the other, trying to get through security.
But to be fair, and this is all the more reason everyone should go buy really nice hardcovers of books. It's at minimum, you know, you might not read it right away, but it's a nice little, like, it's almost like art on your wall. You put it in a shelf, you have all these different colored spines, and it looks nice.
Speaking of art, is this video as well?
No, we do. She'll do stills.
I was only asking because I was at Hampton's Who Done It this weekend, and one of the bookstagrammers bedazzled my entire Tutor cover. It's so cool looking. I can't imagine the amount of time that she had spent on it.
Do you have it with you there next to you?
I do. It's right here.
Oh my God.
Wild, right? Like down to my name and everything. I was like, this must have taken like hours.
That's
so
actually
incredible. So trying to get it home and like don't mess any of the beads up, you know? Like,
wow, that's a fan.
Yeah. She'll be a Thriller Fest.
She can bedazzle Hale.
Yeah, she'll bedazzle our fringe book.
She's all booked up on Instagram. That's her handle.
All booked up?
Yep. All booked up. Everybody go follow her.
Yeah.
So now that you've got these 3, I'm sorry, I want to get back to Courtney's books because we're trying
Courtney's books? Okay.
Courtney's books. Enough about all this craziness.
Yes.
Although bedazzling's pretty cool. So now that you've got these 3 done, because the Hostess just released, and then the Aunt is the next one coming out.
Yeah.
So you have 2 books coming out this year.
The Tutor
was in November.
Yeah.
And then this paperback. So technically, if we're going by the US paperback release, then the Aunt will be like September 23rd. But the audio and digital will be available June 11th. This is when you have a UK publisher, everything comes out there, and then it's a 3-month paperback delay. So we've been kind of coordinating our releases here with the paperback release.
Okay. Which publisher is it?
Hodder and Stoughton. They're under Hachette UK.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I am really excited for you. And do you have any like ideas before we wrap up? Do you have any ideas? And you don't have to tell us what the idea is. Just, do you have ideas for the next one?
Yeah. So I've written 3 more.
Oh my God. Of course you have.
So I will actually be going to Pitch Fest to pitch a couple editors there.
Sweet.
Wow.
See how that goes. We got a really good lineup. I showed my agent and she was like, yeah, you need to go.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that your agent is open to you doing some pitching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because nobody can speak about your book the way you can speak about your book. Although I can't talk about Courtney and just say book. It's books. She does books in 3s.
Very prolific, especially with you have multiple children.
Yeah, I have 2 boys, but they have to go to school before, like that's why they leave for the day and I will sit down and write, and I have to set a timer for like when I have to pick them up, because I'll just be like head down.
you would be shocked. Jeannie, definitely don't cut this out. I'm gonna razz some of the screenwriters out here who they might have full-time jobs, but they don't have like children. They don't have other responsibilities that some other people have, and that's fine. At least not yet. They might not have that. And it's just constant complaints. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. So you have time. Most people have time if they don't have the weight of other responsibilities, right? If Courtney can do it, I say.
Well, look, I mean, it all my husband also says that I'm like, I get in like hyper focus mode where I'm like, I have my to-do list and like, don't bother me. I will not talk to anybody. And, and again, with finding the time, like I was saying with the aunt, and I realized I had to do this kind of sort of overhaul. One thing I learned was, I went to Harrogate last year in the UK because they were doing a crime festival like 2 weeks before my book came out. So I went there to network, but I was taking the red eye, and then my agent was picking me up, and we were going to my editor. And so like, I needed to like land and hit the ground running. So I started getting up at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So I'd go to bed at 8 p.m., get up at 2 or 3 in the morning. I was getting so much stuff done. Just in those 4 hours were more productive than anything else because your phone's not ringing, your kids aren't bothering you. So I kind of, when I realized with the aunt that I had to do this overhaul, I had a week to do it. I did that. I went to bed I put the kids to bed and I'd go to bed, and then I'd get up at 2 o'clock and just get these 4 hours of just like hammering through.
That's insane.
Sometimes you just got to make it work.
Yeah.
And it's also speaks to how distracting these things are.
Right?
I'm waving my phone, people.
Jeannie's showing her phone.
Yeah, it's
audio medium.
It's so distracting. And sometimes it's like, I want it to actually give me an electrical shock if I've been holding it too long. Like if Apple could come up with that feature to actually electrocute people if they're holding on to it too long, it would be great. I would sign up for it.
But even then, I mean, like just daily life, I'm like, I'll be here like, oh, I got to do laundry. But like, no, I can't wake anyone up with the washer and dryer. So I can't touch it.
There's something to be said about getting a lot of stuff done when you know the rest of the world, at least your hemisphere, is sleeping.
Yeah.
There's no
emails, no nothing.
Yeah, in Jeannie's defense, it's mostly me Slack messaging her throughout the day. That's why she can't get off her phone.
But I even noticed that, and this is a total side note, but a few weeks ago, we had a symposium that was in the middle of the day for me at 1 o'clock Eastern time, because we had a UK instructor. And I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I can get all my editing done and all that kind of stuff done during the day instead of doing it at 11 o'clock at night, because I usually do everything after a symposium and they're usually at night. I couldn't. It took me forever because it was constant interruptions. So when I'm doing the symposium at night, it's great because 9 o'clock, it's over. Nobody's bugging me. I can just edit the video and get it done. But I can't write at night because I'm too tired.
That's the thing. It depends if you're a night owl or not. I thought I was a night owl. I guess just as I'm getting older, I'm like, oh yeah, 8 o'clock. Yes, I'll go to bed now. And it's easier for me to wake up at 2 as opposed to staying up until 2.
As you're getting older. Courtney is 28 years old, you guys. She is her whole life ahead of her.
Yeah, that was 12 years ago.
40 is the new, I think it's the new 40, but 50, oh boy, that's the new 40.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
40s are great. They are the best.
You have told me that before, yes.
They're the best. Because you're still like in good shape, you're still smart, you're bright, you've got stuff to do, but you have life experience. So you have like, you're a more interesting person. You've got something to say. I think 40s are really good.
Most people that applies to.
Okay,
so leave it at that. I have anything interesting to say. Courtney, it's been lovely having you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Buy all of her books, especially The Aunt or Aunts, depending on what country you're from. Coming soon, as well as her future books. She writes one a month, apparently, at this pace. Waking up at 2 in the morning.
But go pick up The Hostess. It's out now. The Story Will Save You is a Pipeline Artists original podcast. Like, subscribe, and follow us on social media at Pipeline Artists and at Book Pipeline. For more information, visit pipelineartist.com and bookpipeline.com, where we have contests for unpublished manuscripts as well as for published books that would make great adaptations for either film or television. Learn more about our efforts to help writers find publishing success on bookpipeline.com. Until next time, let the story save you.